Program funding for the Organic Odyssey was provided by the California Certified Organic Farmers Foundation, as well as the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. Visit their web pages or social media for all their amazing content and guidance on everything organic. Support for the Organic Odyssey is provided in part by the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research at Cal Poly. For more information or to support the center, please visit organic.calpoly.edu. That's organic.calpoly.edu for the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research at Cal Poly. Support for the Organic Odyssey is provided in part by AgCom Central. Visit AgCom Central on twitch.tv or youtube.com for all content ag-related. That's AgCom Central on twitch.tv or youtube.com for AgCom Central.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Organic Odyssey. I'm your host, Madison Jasso.
And I'm your co-host, Avery Gill.
Today, we are joined by two special guests.
Hi, my name is Emmy Marrow, and I am an agricultural communications student here at Cal Poly.
And I'm Dr. Matt Grishop. I'm the director of the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research here at Cal Poly.
For today, I'm really excited for today's episode. We're going to be discussing various organic production topics that come up in the social media videos that we will be showing you guys here shortly. Okay, so for our first video, it is called, "Is Organic Farming Better for the Environment Than Conventional Farming?" Production, can you play that video, please?
I don't believe so, and we are one of the largest organic farmers probably in the country of leafy green vegetables. But we're also a large supplier growing conventional vegetables. And on the organic side, we end up having to apply fertilizer, for example, and we talk in terms of tons per acre. On the conventional side, it's hundreds of pounds per acre. And what that allows us for the entire environment is there's a lot less trucking. We're not moving these things all over the country. It's more concentrated. And I think in that way, conventional farming is very much easier on the environment.
All right. Now, Dr. Grishop, I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the impact of organic farming compared to conventional farming?
So it's a really nuanced question, Maddie. That was actually Rod Braga. He's the CEO of Braga Farms. One of their organic labels is Josie's Organics. They're actually a really big producer up in the Salinas Valley. They also have some production down in the Imperial Valley. And specifically what he was talking about was differences in fuel costs associated with moving fertility from wherever it's coming from into get them onto your vegetable fields. And so organic fertilizers tend to be a lot less dense in terms of primary plant nutrition, which would be nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, compared to conventional fertilizers. Conventional fertilizers are either mined, or in the case of nitrogen, they're produced through the Haber-Bosch process, which is very fossil fuel intensive in and of itself. And so they tend to just be those elements. So for example, if you look at percentage nitrogen, you can have upwards of 20-40% by mass nitrogen in a conventional formulation. So that means if you put out 100 pounds, 20 to 40 pounds of that would be nitrogen. If you look at organic fertilizers in nitrogen, typically you're down in this 6-8% is about as high as you'll see. Some liquid products are a little higher. And that's really because of where the fertility is coming from. And so it's not coming from a high pressure chemistry process. It's coming from organic inputs. So think composts, animal byproducts, some minerals and other elements. And along with that comes a lot of carbon, which is really where all that weight is coming from when you're putting on the prerequisite amount of nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. The other part of that sort of whole equation, though, is mineralized synthetic nutrition, while much more concentrated, moves into the environment much more readily. Because there's not a lot of carbon to hold on to it, for example, nitrates, which is the primary form of nitrogen that leafy greens take up, that's a very mobile molecule. It'll fall into the groundwater, which is actually a huge issue in the Salinas Valley. Or it can break down into nitrous oxide, or sometimes you'll get methane or ammonia that'll blow off the fertilizer. And those are all greenhouse gases, which contribute to global warming. So it's a pretty nuanced question, but I think no doubt in terms of moving those products around, there's just less mass being moved in a conventional system. Some of the other contexts, though, for organic production, specifically for vegetables, if you think about pest management, the pest management systems in organics rely on either natural pesticides, so living organisms, metabolites, sometimes things like sulfur and copper, whereas you use a whole suite of synthetic insecticides, fungicides, et cetera, in conventional ag. And the organic products tend to not be as broad spectrum, so they don't affect as many different kinds of organisms per chemical. They also are much shorter lived in the environment typically. Copper would be the big exception for that one. So it's safer for farm workers, it's safer for the natural environment, and it's safer for the consumer. But that said, I mean, in the US, we're pretty good at not putting a lot of pesticides even on our conventional food.
So what I took from that video was that conventional farming is potentially better for the environment. Is that a far stretch?
Well, I mean, again,
I think it is a far stretch.
It's so nuanced. So, I would say in terms of the environmental impact of moving fertility around, sure, it probably is. But that's really one dimension of the farming system. So if you're thinking about preserving soil, creating soils that help contribute to clean water, to cleaner air, I think organics almost always have the edge, just because, and it's sort of tied to that massive fertilizer. If you're putting compost on or you're using a formulated organic fertilizer, inevitably you're putting a lot of carbon into the soil, which contributes to soil health and environmental health in general.
Yeah, I like the video a lot personally because in today's media, a lot of people like to share fake news and miscommunicate things to the audience, and especially talk about things that they don't know that much about. So it was nice to see someone who knew about both sides of the equation just speak about both sides so that we could believe him, because he has a lot of credibility in this, and so that was nice to see.
Yeah, and Rod is a fantastic organic grower. The Braga organization is doing a lot of really good work up in Salinas. They're really leading in a lot of organic production systems work, and they definitely know their business. Mm-hmm. So
I agree, Eva. It's interesting to see the contrast and the impact of the environment between organics and conventional farming.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that video, but we do have another video. And this one is the benefits of eating organic. So if we can play that one.
There's actually a study that shows eating organic food, so basically removing glyphosate from your food, because organic is not bougie, it's just without the glyphosate, right?
There we go.
For 3 to 5 days only, that small window can reduce the circulating pesticides in your blood 80 to 90%. So let's say I've been eating conventional food my whole pregnancy. I'm now 5 months pregnant, and I decide for the next 4 days to just eat all organic. I mean, what a blessing it is for the baby and all the things that are happening during this, crucial time.
Wow. So that video, that was kind of interesting.
Interesting.
What did you guys think about that?
Interesting. I don't.
So basically what she's saying is that if you switch to organic food, you have a quick impact on removing pesticides throughout your body. Did you know that, Dr. Grisham?
yeah, it's kind of interesting. The study that was being held up, the actual publication came out, if it's the one, I think it is, it came out a while ago. It was done, I think it was done by the University of Washington. And they specifically were talking about one class of insecticide called organophosphates. I'm an entomologist, so this is kind of where I live. But those insecticides are pretty toxic. They have a high mammalian toxicity typically. It was funny to hear her talk about glyphosate, though. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, which is an herbicide. And honestly, glyphosate, there's a lot of questions about long-term chronic impacts of glyphosate, but from an acute toxicity standpoint, it's like table salt. I mean, it's actually, table salt would kill you faster. Organophosphates, on the other hand, which are in that paper, some of them are extremely toxic. And I mean, people die from exposure to that, not from food, but if you're an applicator and you're not applying safe. And that study, very clearly showed that that the trace amounts of organophosphates, at least, was very sort of immediate. And if it's the paper I'm thinking of, they actually showed it both ways. They showed, okay, if you stop in 3 days, we don't see much. If you start within a day, we're finding it again. So, and this is, it's kind of a no-brainer in terms of organic production and synthetic pesticides, since with very few exceptions are any synthetic products allowed in organic ag, you're not going to have residual on the produce. But again, it gets really nuanced. I mean, what are you talking about? A fungicide, an insecticide? Which class of chemical are you talking about? Some of these things we understand very well what their immediate and long-term deleterious effects are, and some of them we typically have a good idea about their immediate impacts, but we don't really understand the long-term, like low-dose exposures and what that can do to a human.
Yeah. After watching that video, he kind of got scared. I was like, oh, maybe I
Yeah.
should fully switch to organic. But do you think she was just being a little, not dramatic, but
I was gonna say it's kind of, I have a hard time fully believing things online like that, because I feel like some of those things are definitely fear mongering and not fully telling the truth when it comes to things like that. But I definitely agree with research when it comes to organic research like that, because there are, what's the word? Chemicals and things like that that do harm pregnancies and your body like that. But it's the hardcore, it's going to leave your body in 3 days and things like that. That's kind of hard for me to
how do you
believe.
know?
How do you know
Yeah.
for sure? Or the long-term effects and things like that, that it's like, do we really know 100%? Yeah. Just my 2 cents.
I mean, for me, the biggest sort of red flag, if you will, in that video is that they held up a paper talking about a broad class of insecticides, and then they talked about glyphosate.
Yeah.
And they just aren't,
Yeah.
it's not appropriate to really conflate those two things because they're very
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
perfect. So for the third video, okay, so on to the third video. And this video is called Pros and Cons of Buying Organic Food.
Organic food. You may hear about it, you may see it advertised, but what does it really mean? Well, let's cut through the clutter and clarify. Now, when it comes to produce, organic simply means that the soil has been certified for at least 3 years, free of pesticides, free of artificial fertilizer, and the produce is non-GMO, which means it's not genetically modified. Now, when it comes to meat that's organic, generally it means that the animal has not been given any hormones, has not been given any antibiotics, and has been fed organic feed. So what does it really mean? Well, as a general rule, there's a pro associated with organic food. Most of the time, there's no pesticides involved, there's no antibiotics involved, and there's no hormones added, which makes it potentially more healthy. Now, what are the cons? What are the negatives? Generally speaking, organic food tends to be more expensive, and some of you may have already experienced this. Also, there's a higher likelihood of pests and bacteria, which can sometimes be undesirable and can cause illness. The food has also been known to go bad sooner, so it doesn't last as long. What I want to know is, what is your experience with organic food? Which one of you out there buys organic, and tell me why you do it? I would love to hear from you. In any case, I look forward to your comments, and I'll see you in the next video.
So this video, I feel like basically just summed up what we've talked about before. Like the pros, he claims that it's healthier for you, like no GMOs and all that. And then the cons, of course, he stated that it's more expensive, which we all know is true. I don't know. Actually, that's my question. Do you eat organic foods?
Largely.
Yeah.
Largely. Not 100%, but almost all the produce that we consume, most of the animal products, in processed, we don't eat a lot of processed food, but in processed foods and some bulk foods like rice, I don't think we tend to buy organic there as much. I think that's mostly just where we shop and availability.
Yeah.
As much as possible, we also try to shop locally for things like produce. And honestly, if you want healthy vegetables, the fresher they are, the better they are. And in many ways, that probably is more important than how they were grown. And And that's one of the big challenges with a lot of the studies that have compared organic and conventional products. It's sort of like, well, if it's not the same cultivar of crop grown on the same soil, harvested at more or less the same time, stored the same amount of time, traveled the same amount of distance, very rapidly, you're not really comparing apples to apples anymore. And it's hard to really know, okay, well, why was this higher in a particular vitamin or lower, et cetera. One thing that he went into was the no pesticides thing. And that's something that is just patently false. We use pesticides in organic ag. It's just the type of pesticides we use. They tend to be, fewer of them are nerve poisons, and they tend to be either living organisms, as I said earlier, or products of living organisms.
Why do you think people keep claiming the whole no pesticides thing when, like, it's, as you said, proven false repeatedly?
Well, this gets into, I think, Avery, your comment earlier about, I think you used the word fake news, but, very, very little in this life is simple when you really get down to it. And I think, oftentimes I see people use pesticides interchangeably. They really mean insecticides, right? But they're not thinking about herbicides, or they're not thinking about fungicides. And I think what it comes down to is folks just don't have a lot of exposure to agricultural systems. At least very few folks in our society do. And it's hard to really grasp all the subtleties and the nuance in that. No different than, if you've ever popped open the hood of your car and just said, oh yeah, where's the X, Y, or Z? If you don't have a lot of context with an engine, you might have trouble finding a fan belt or an air filter or something like that. Whereas if you're a mechanic, it's obvious where everything is, or how to identify where it is. And so I think that's where the pesticide thing really comes from. It's somewhere along the line, it was like, okay, we're not using synthetic pesticides, and then that somehow became pesticides.
Yeah. So you think it's an easier way to basically tell the difference between conventional and organic?
Right. But it's not factually accurate.
No, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem. But and this is where, if you are concerned about pesticide residues in your food, organic is almost always going to be a good choice for you. But the larger benefits, in my mind, are always really for the people actually participating in the production side of our food system. So, the folks who really get exposed to pesticides are not the consumers, it's the farm workers and the pesticide applicators. And so if they're not, if those things aren't being used, then that workforce has a much reduced, more challenging health risk averted. And then of course there's the environmental side of it. We spray these molecules out there and they don't just stop, they keep going, and they sometimes end up places we don't want them to.
Yeah. I'm honestly curious to see what the comments on that video was, because he said to leave a comment why you eat organic or something.
Yes.
I wonder what those comments. Oh, pulled them up.
Perfect. Thank you, production.
In the 60s, we used to just call it food.
Oh, wow. Try to buy everything organic because I feel it is better for my gut health.
Which could be true, correct?
Can we debunk that? Is it better for
Would you rather eat food with pesticides? ?
Yeah.
Tastes better. Yeah.
Beautiful. I buy it. I find it tastes better. The tastes are richer and less bland. I actually find the food lasts longer because it's from smaller providers.
So yeah, if you're getting it from your local farmer's market or a CSA or something,
Local.
and it was probably harvested that morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas you get something from the supermarket and it might have been harvested 10 days ago.
Yeah.
Regardless of organic, conventional.
Yeah.
In terms of the supply chain.
Okay, we have one more video, and that is natural organic versus conventionally produced meat.
I'm Michelle Rook. You may have heard the hype about natural or organically produced meat products, but are they that different from conventionally produced meat?
Natural is basically a marketing issue.
He says anyone can label a product as natural, but that doesn't mean it's nutritionally any better.
I could use implants, hormones, antibiotics, do everything under the sun and still call it natural because there are no guidelines.
Organic meat is produced under strict USDA standards and must come from cattle on organic pasture. However, it often costs much more than conventionally grown meat.
Could be anywhere from 10% to 100% premium. It really depends on the item.
That's because they don't have the economies of scale that conventional production does.
We pay more for transportation to consolidate it all together, as well as we have more labor.
Organic is a choice some consumers are willing to pay more for, but the debate rages on about whether it can sustain the growing population. This message is sponsored by the South Dakota Soybean Council.
I think that's a really good point, that on a lot of packages now in the grocery stores, there's all natural.
Yeah, I feel like
Packaging.
this is more like they mentioned like the guidelines, like they're not as strict. I'm not sure how, like, when this was filmed because it looks kind of old, but I'm wondering if is it stricter now, like all the guidelines and stuff, or is it still?
So, what's really unique about certified organic products is that there is a law and an enforcement behind that law that pertains to the word organic. The USDA Agricultural Marketing Service, underneath them, you've got the National Organic Program. And essentially, they publish guidelines that organic certifiers use to evaluate farmers and their production systems and whether or not they can be certified as organic. Natural is just a word. Honestly, sustainable is just a word. It's changing a little bit, but regenerative is just a word. There isn't a nationally recognized certification behind it. So if you claim that you have an organic product and you in fact don't, you're looking at potential jail time, and I think the fee schedule's up to about $10,000 per incident now.
Wow.
And so and the kind of cool thing about all that, not putting people in jail and fining them, but the really neat thing about certified organic is that Harriet Bihar, who's a longtime organic advocate, who's up there, was saying that organic farming costs more. Some of it is that sort of supply chain concentration, but a lot of it really comes down to things like in that earlier video. Inputs cost more. They cost more to move around. There's typically a lot more labor. All of those things cost money. From a pest management standpoint, you don't have the tools to prevent loss like you do in conventional ag. So all of those things add up to create a system that is going to have a higher cost of production. And the really cool thing about the organic certification is that you have this voluntary arrangement. Nobody is telling anyone they have to grow organically. If you grow organically and go through certification, that's your choice. On the flip side, other side of the cash register, no one's telling consumers you have to buy organic produce or organic food. That's your choice. And you're actually engaging in a very consensual economic relationship when you do that. You're saying, hey, I want food that's grown without synthetic pesticides, without synthetic fertilizers, that emphasizes soil health and biodiversity, and I'm willing to pay for it. And that's really what it comes down to. The reason why we develop synthetic pesticides and fertilizers and confined animal systems and all of this stuff was really driven by price. It's the cheapest way to do it. We're able to externalize a lot of environmental and social costs that otherwise we'd have to be dealing with when we use those technologies. When we back away from those, things get more expensive again. And like any industry in farming, the biggest expense is typically labor, especially in produce, and so things like fruit and vegetables.
So as a consumer, and if I go to the store and see something that says all natural, I just don't believe it, or how would I?
It has no meaning. Like
Okay.
there's no legal meaning. There's no commonly agreed upon standard by what that means. And I mean, really, I mean, the only agricultural, well, short of like USDA grades on meat and potentially vegetables, the only sort of organics, I think, are the only sort of federally legally enforced standard that's out there. So everything else is a third-party certification of some kind. So like fair trade or some of the regenerative certifications that are out there now, but none of them are recognized at a national level and actually have, a civil and criminal consequence to violating the agreement, if you will.
So, okay, I'm a little confused.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So for organics, you have to be certified, and so, but you can slap on all natural on anything. but with that, you won't get in trouble, or would you?
I mean, it's kind of like if you look at the supplement markets, how, if you, I don't know, you buy saw palmetto or black raspberry extract or something, and there'll always be a little disclaimer on that bottle that says these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA.
Okay.
Because, and natural is more or less the same thing. There is no agreed upon definition of what it is, so there's no enforcement of what it means. Therefore, you can, I'm sure there are things you can't put natural on, but they're few and far between.
So is there like a certain little like label or something on those that are like ran through the FDA?
Well, if you make healthy, this is where the FDA and the USDA get a little separate. The Food and Drug Administration, if you make specific health claims about a product you're selling, you have to, the burden of proof is on you. So you either have to show that with research that the FDA reviews, that it has to show that, oh, okay, well, eating this is going to lower your cholesterol or whatever it is, right? But with like all natural, there are no health claims being made.
Mm-hmm.
So
all gimmicky and like just so people will buy it, basically.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that farmer, I don't know if he was a hog farmer or a beef farmer, but he pretty much nailed it. It's just, it has no real meaning. Whereas organics, there's actually a very well codified meaning of what it means. And again, there's enforcement behind it. So if someone does go off the rails or gets dishonest, there's recourse to, end that.
So as an organic producer, do you get upset when other producers do that? Like slap an all natural label on things and just, get away with it?
Yeah. I mean, I get upset from people just lying in general.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's dishonest. It'd be like someone rolling back the odometer on a car they sold you. Yeah, it's only got 50,000 miles. But no, it's got 250,000 miles on it. I mean, and it's something in the organic community we take really seriously because we're very concerned about protecting the quote unquote organic brand, really that certification. So it's pretty annoying. And there's a lot of things happening right now around the concept of regenerative. There's actually a regenerative organic certification now, which uses organic as a baseline, but there's a number of other certifications that don't necessarily use organic as a baseline. And so what they allow, what they don't allow, how they enforce, it's all just some certification agency that says, okay, yeah, you're part of our club.
Gotcha.
Which is how organic started before we had a national standard.
Okay.
But we've had a standard for 23 years now.
Wow.
Well, that's all the videos that we have today. I learned a lot, especially that last video.
That last one was
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for being on today's episode, and thank you, Ava, for being a great co-host. I hope you guys tune in next episode, and I hope you guys also learned a lot today. Thank you.
Program funding for the Organic Odyssey was provided by the California Certified Organic Farmers Foundation, as well as the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. The show was created by Matt Grisham, the talent coordinator and resident organic expert, as well as Moses Mike, the faculty production lead. The Organic Odyssey is a production of the AGC 225 class called Digital Communications in Agriculture. The student team that produced the show included Natalie Eubanks and Savannah Taylor, the directors, hosts Madison Jasso and Ava Rose, storyboard editing by Avery Mulerath, and the technical team, Isabella Anderson, Vincent Biller, Vivian Kempora, Kendall Cook, Callie Granis, Carolyn Janes, Zach Collar, Emmy Lynn Marrow, Jack Oliver Roa, Sarah Purcell, Mason Riley, and Holly Rudnick. The guests on this episode included Matt Grisham and Emmy Marrow. The Organic Odyssey is a digital media collaboration between the Agricultural Education and Communications Department and the Grimm Family Center for Organic Production and Research at Cal Poly. These credits were read by Chelsea Ann. Thanks for listening.